Imagine suing the government for $10 billion and the person you're suing is yourself. That's not a punchline. That's happening right now. Donald Trump, sitting in the White House, filed a $10 billion lawsuit against the Treasury Department and the IRS. Same Treasury he controls. Same IRS he controls. Same government he runs. He's the plaintiff. He's basically the defendant. And he wants taxpayers, you, me, every single working family in this country, to hand him $10 billion. Let that sink in. He goes on television and brags that he's already won. He says he's settling the case with himself. Then his lawyers walk into federal court and ask the judge for 90 more days not to fight the lawsuit, not to dispute it, but to, quote, reach a settlement. A settlement between Donald Trump and Donald Trump, funded by you. But here's where it gets interesting. The judge, Kathleen Williams, looked at this circus and said, hold on, wait a minute. You're telling me you're suing yourself, and you want me to rubber stamp a $10 billion payout from the public treasury into your private pocket? Not happening. She refused the 90-day extension. She demanded separate briefings from both sides, even though both sides are the same man. And then she did something extraordinary. She brought in 3 of the most respected law firms in the country as friends of the court. Not 1, 3. Because $10 billion of your money is on the line, and she wants fearless, independent legal minds advising her. Think about what's actually being attempted here. A sitting president using the power of his office, weaponizing the Justice Department he controls, settling a personal lawsuit with himself, and draining the federal treasury into his own bank account. There is a name for this in constitutional law. It's called a collusive lawsuit. And the Supreme Court settled this over 200 years ago. If both sides are really the same side, the court has no power to act. None. The Constitution forbids it. There must be a real fight, real adversaries, real conflict, not a handshake deal between a man and his mirror. And this isn't a one-time stunt. This is the playbook. They tried it with Mike Flynn. They're floating it for January 6 defendants. The pattern is always the same. Stage a fake fight. Fake the opposition. Cash the check, walk away. But this time the number is $10 billion. $10 billion. Money that could fix roads, fund schools, help veterans, feed kids. Instead, it's being funneled toward one man through the most transparent legal scam this country has ever seen. And the people defending it, the same Justice Department that's supposed to protect the public interest. The same officials whose job is to fight for taxpayers. They're not fighting, they're not even pretending to fight. They're just asking how much you'd like, sir. The judge sees it, the top lawyers in America see it, the Constitution itself sees it. The only question left is whether the system has the spine to say no. Because if a president can sue himself and pay himself out of the public treasury, then the word government doesn't mean anything anymore. It just means whoever holds the pen signs the check, and the rest of us pay the bill.
Senator Kopel in New York, and we are interrupting our normal programming because the Supreme Court has just issued what is a major ruling on the president's use of tariffs. We have a team going through this decision right now from a legal and economic and a political point of view. But first, our legal correspondent, Jan Crawford, who has the decision for us in Washington. Jan?
Tony, this decision is 6-3, invalidating President Trump's use of these sweeping tariffs, imposing tariffs on almost every trading partner worldwide. This is the most significant U.S. Supreme loss for a U.S. president, I think, in modern history. It is invalidating what is the cornerstone of President Trump's economic policy, ruling that he does not have authority under this federal law.
It's great to be here, and I have some pretty big news to share. The Supreme Court has just dropped a major ruling about President Trump's use of tariffs, and it really shakes things up. So they decided against him in a significant way, with a 6-3 vote that invalidates his sweeping tariffs that affected nearly all of our trading partners around the globe. This might just be one of the biggest losses a president has faced from the Supreme Court in quite a while. The court ruled that he simply doesn't have the authority to apply these tariffs under federal law. Now picture this moment. It's February 20th, 2026, a Friday morning. Donald Trump's just waking up in the White House. He grabs his coffee, checks his phone, and comes across the news that hits like a ton of bricks. His entire economic agenda has just been dismantled. It wasn't Congress, it wasn't the Democrats, and it certainly wasn't some random district court judge in California. It was the Supreme Court of the United States that dealt the blow with that 6-3 decision. His go-to policy, the one he has been championing since 2016, is now ruled unconstitutional, just like that. And here's the kicker that probably drove him up the wall. 2 of the justices who voted against him were actually his own picks. He put them in those positions, celebrated and defended them. And yet, on that fateful Friday, they looked at his biggest policy and said, sorry, the law doesn't allow you to do this. Just imagine the chaos of phone calls that must have occurred that morning. the frustration and anger would have been sky high.
Case to reach the high court in years, sweeping implications for the economy and, of course, for presidential power. And at stake here are billions of dollars in revenue that have already been collected by the government. Pamela Wolf, the other significance here is that this is the first time that the 6-3 conservative court has ruled against President Trump in one of these major cases that have gone before the court since he returned to power in January. Now, we are still going through this case.
Trump took $10 billion to go and sue himself. Okay, this thing sounds funny, but it's serious. It's need to be taken serious. How can you use such huge kind of money to go and sue yourself? Like, and you are in power, and your country is losing a lot. Your country is shutting down. Everything is going in vain, and you are there taking $10 billion to go and sue yourself. Like, the country has roads that needs to be constructed, that needs to be repaired. The country, it has people that they are in the hospitals and they need to be bailed. They need to be billed to get out of that hospital. The country that has people that need that money to go and fund their school fees to their children. And I want to thank the people of America to notice what has been going on, to notice that your country is shutting down through called president.
Breaking immigration news, a federal district judge in Seattle just slammed Trump's refugee ban. Trump is the president, not a king, and he can't just nullify with the stroke of a pen a law that Congress created. The judge was particularly moved by the heartbreaking stories of the real people impacted. Refugees stranded in danger zones. Families who sold everything before their flights were canceled. Children torn from their parents. The administration says they're going to appeal, but for now, this is a major win for refugees and their families. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about all this. I was particularly moved by the heartbreaking stories of the real people impacted. Refugees stranded in danger zones. Families who sold everything before their flights were canceled. Children torn from their parents. The administration says they're going to appeal, but for now, this is a major win for refugees and their families. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about all this.
Welcome back. First of all, I want to congratulate the USA judge. You did the great job yesterday, and I'm glad and happy for you people that you have been come to your senses. Now you have realized that you have been losing a lot through that your president called Trump. You did a great job for shutting that man for what he has been doing. Like, how can you use $10 billion for suing someone? Like, not suing someone, for suing yourself. You did the great job. Let's watch the video and see.
Okay, folks, sit down for this one, because what I'm about to walk you through represents one of the most genuinely dramatic Trump courtroom moments in recent American legal history. Donald Trump has been absolutely relentless about claiming he dominates every situation throughout his political career. He keeps insisting his courtroom presence demonstrates exceptional commanding capabilities through his various specific public statements affecting his specific legal messaging. He keeps claiming his legal proceedings reflect his exceptional ability to control situations through his characteristic confident framing. He keeps telling audiences that judges respect his presence and authority through his specific public statements. He keeps attacking judges who rule against him as politically motivated through his characteristic counterattack approach. His whole messaging essentially positions him as exceptional courtroom presence, whose specific legal proceedings demonstrate strong domination, regardless of documented evidence about specific moments affecting actual specific situations. But here's what's actually happened during a documented courtroom moment that millions of Americans watched in real time. Judge Arthur Engoron specifically initially denied Trump permission to deliver his own closing argument. Trump specifically launched into a 6-minute rant attacking the case, the judge, and the attorney general. Engoron specifically told Trump's lawyer to control your judge specifically gave Trump a 1-minute warning, then cut him off and recessed. Can you believe this? January 2024 closing arguments. In Trump's New York civil fraud trial, Trump specifically tried to hijack the courtroom through his specific behavior. He specifically attempted a 6-minute rant attacking the case, the judge, and the attorney general through a specific direct courtroom action. Judge Arthur Engoron had specifically already refused to let Trump give a formal closing statement through his specific judicial decision. The specific refusal came because Trump's team wouldn't promise he stick to the law and evidence, rather than campaign rhetoric through specific procedural concerns. Let me repeat those specific opening details because they deserve attention from every American evaluating Trump's documented courtroom behavior. 6-minute rant attacking the case, judge, and attorney general. Engoron refused formal closing statement. Trump's team wouldn't promise he'd stick to law and evidence rather than campaign rhetoric. The specific procedural details essentially represent exactly the kind of comprehensive documentation that defines the pre-confrontation context, regardless of various specific defensive characterizations affecting subsequent interpretations. Think about what specifically a defendant's legal team refusing to commit.
Story in our show today is in our Law and Justice lead. The U.S. Supreme Court earlier today ruled that Donald Trump is entitled to some immunity from criminal prosecution for acts he took, official acts, when he was president. And now the lower courts must decide which acts are official, which are not, which means that Trump's January 6th case is unlikely to happen before November's election, if at all. CNN's Paula Reed has more on how we got to today's ruling.
Presidents have to be given total immunity. They have to be allowed to do their job.
The Supreme Court partially siding with former President Donald Trump in his ongoing January 6th case, ruling that former presidents are entitled to some immunity from prosecution for official actions, but not for private conduct.
They ruled that Donald Trump can have a bit of immunity from criminal prosecution for actions he took while in office. However, they have a bit of work left to do in figuring out which actions are part of his official duties and which aren't. This means that the January 6th case might not even surface before the November election, if it happens at all. This ruling does give a slight nod to Trump, acknowledging that former presidents can get some legal protection for their official actions, but that doesn't extend to their personal conduct. The implications of this go beyond just legal matters. This whole idea of immunity wasn't merely a legal argument for Trump. It was at the core of how he viewed his unassailable position. He didn't just believe he had a strong defense. He thought the Constitution somehow placed him above any legal scrutiny. That's a bold claim, honestly. One of the most audacious defenses I've seen in American history. As courts continue to knock down this line of thinking, they're not just handing out legal defeats. They're gradually unraveling a theory of presidential power that could threaten the whole notion of separated powers. Each ruling pushes the defense to confront an uncomfortable truth where the reality isn't always in line with their arguments. And now there's this whole situation with evidence just sitting there. Recordings, sworn testimonies, bank records, findings on fraud. It feels like everything is just on pause because a legal team spent years trying to keep this case from reaching the courts. I want to clarify what the courts have said regarding the whole immunity issue. So let me break this down for you. When the appeals court said that former President Trump is now just citizen Trump, it really changed the game. They were looking into Trump's claim that he couldn't be prosecuted for things he did while in office unless he faced impeachment and got booted out by the Senate. Basically, he thought impeachment was the only way anyone could hold a president accountable in a legal sense, and that any criminal prosecution without that was off the table. That argument was quite the stretch, and they dug up some theoretical support from the Constitution to back it. But the appeals court wasn't buying it at all. Legal experts even hailed their decision as a significant ruling regarding presidential power in ages, tossing that argument right aside. They pointed out that if they went along with Trump's theory, it would mean presidents could just break the law and get away with it forever.
From the videos you have seen that Trump sees himself like the king, like he's owning the world, like this man sees like everything belongs to him. Now that people of America have come to their senses, now that they have noticed that they have been losing a lot and their country is shutting down through this man, they have decided to raise their issues and shut everything that has been happening behind the door. And I want to appreciate the judge. The most important thing that I want to say, thank you for the judge of the USA. Okay, like